Waheguru, 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 Waheguru,
Wow.
Waheguru. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Today's short presentation is about Ravan. Ravan was a demigod in the Hindu tradition, and the reason we're talking about him is twofold. One, because there's been some recent events in the community which have pulled the rug from people, and it's left people a bit shocked and uneasy around how someone can do so much bad, do so much Simran, and can still do something wrong. And the other reason, because Gurbani talks about Ravan, there's shabas about Ravan in Guru Granth Sahib Ji. So we can use this as an example and we can look at what Gurbani says. So to give you a bit of context about him, firstly, and this will be for Darshan Kaur as well, because she doesn't know much about Ravan. My story, I wasn't into Sikhi. I'm very fortunate to have found Sangat, Darshan Kaur, and Simran, and it's changed my life. And I don't know where I'd be without it. Who was Ravan? Key points from history: he was the son of a great saint and sage. He had a great teacher, and he was blessed by Shiva. He was given his trident or weapon of Shiva's. He knew all the religious texts of the time, and one explanation for why he had 10 heads were that the six Gitas and the four Vedas he knew inside out. And because he had so much religious knowledge, he had 10 heads. At one point, he tried to sever his head, and then Shiva made another one grow back. So he had 10 heads. So you'll see the depictions of him with 10 heads. He had unfathomable wealth. Sri Lanka is said to be the city of gold at his during his time. He had thousands of wives, and he also had, Gurwani says, ikalak poot, meaning he had 100,000 children, and savalaknati, which is um, daughters of grandchildren, is the literal translation. And he was known as a great leader. He was held in high regard as the ruler of Sri Lanka. What happened to him? So the history reading through the Hindu texts says that his mind was filled with lust for Sita, and because of that, he didn't want war with Rama because he's meant to be a great warrior. So he made a plan to kidnap her. And then Hanuman, who was on Rama's side, uh, burnt down the Sri Lanka, parts of Sri Lanka, and in the end, Rama killed Ravan and got his wife back. This is the Guru Granth Sahib Ji Shabad.
लंका सा कोट समुंद सी खाई, तह रावण कर खबर न पाई। क्या मांगो किश थिर न रहाई, देखत नैन चलियो जग जाई। एक लख पूत सवा लख नाती, तह रावण कर दिया न बाती।
Now, Darshanko is going to explain this half of the Shabad and then we'll move on to the next part. You can read the translation.
Okay, so a fortress like that of Sri Lanka with the ocean as a moat around it, and there's no news about Ravan, whereas Ravan was a king, wasn't he, of Sri Lanka? And Guruji is telling us to reflect on what should we ask for when even somebody so great as Ravan, who had so much intellectual knowledge, so many children, such a big family, so much wealth, he's now gone. He's left this earth. And so perhaps Guruji is telling us to reflect on, what should we really ask for when nothing is permanent? And Dekat Nan Jaleo Jagajai, that Guruji's seeing with their own eyes that the whole world is passing away. Ik lakh put sawa lakh nati. So this is talking about Ravan, who had thousands of sons and thousands of grandsons. Tehe Ravan kar diya na bati. But in that house of Ravan, the lamps and wicks have gone out. What was the meaning of that? We were
So
talking about it, weren't we?
Baisa was explaining today that in the tradition of that time and of that geographical location, when someone would pass away, they would put a diva in their hand, and the idea was that light, that person's soul, can focus in or go into that light and merge back to the light. So merge back to God. But in pursuing this woman, in being consumed by lust, he got his whole family destroyed, his whole kingdom destroyed, and there was nobody left to even do that last right for him.
चंद सूरज जाके तपत रसोई बैसंतर जाके कपड़े धोई. That Ravan had so many powers, occult powers, Vidya, Siddhya, and all sorts, and Vigyan through from reading the Vedas. He'd got so much of that he had managed to get the moon and the sun, the light from the moon and the light from the sun, to cook his food, and Agan to wash his clothes. Gurmat Ram mein naam basai, asthir rahe na kat ho jai.
So just to go back to the
Mm,
Chand Suraj, I think the problem with literal translations is sometimes it's very difficult
mm,
unless you understand the concepts of Gurbani to explain those shabads. The literal
yeah.
translations don't do it justice.
Mm,
There was a shabad that we were talking about today with Baisab around Jindanamani Kadiya, and the literal translation is the soul is ripped out from the body.
mm,
And when you understand the Katha, you think, why would that happen? Because the soul is the Atma, is part of Paramatma. So the Atma is pure. The Atma is connected to God. It's the mind that's disconnected from God.
mm,
And it's the mind's job to reach Nam and make its journey back towards its creator. So it's the mind that's ripped out from the body. And in Gurbani it says, Simran Bhajan Dhyane ki Nita Mukh Chota Khavenga, that those people who don't do Simran Bhajan, they will be beaten in the face. That's not the literal face, that's the mind. This is all talking about the mind. So sometimes if we take the literal translation, we miss the point. And so it helps when you listen to the Katakata, when you listen to lots of stuff around Gurbani, you start to understand, and your understanding changes as well over time and as you do Simran.
Gurmat Ram mein naam basai, asthir rahe na kat ho jai.
So Basai means to Basai is when you say
Embed
someone,
within.
yeah, so when you say
Yeah.
someone bas gaya, right? That when someone's moved to a different country, you say, oh, America bas gaya je. It's Punjabi, it's not difficult Punjabi. It's when someone is settled in a place. So with the Guru's mat, God's name becomes settled in someone, that
Mm,
person becomes permanent.
And it's not the physical body, which is just a costume, which is transitory. But Gurbani tells us that it's the mind that merges back into Vaiguruji, and therefore doesn't have to come back in birth and death, doesn't have to enter into another costume. Kahat Kabir Sonore Loi. Kabir says, listen, people. Loi, is that his wife, actually? Hannah? I think Loi was the name of Bhagat Kabirji's wife. Kahat Kabir Sonore Loi, Ram Naam Bin Mukt Na Hui. That It doesn't matter how much wealth you have, how big your family is, how many mansions you have, how much knowledge you have, without attaining Nam, without actually, which Gurbani tells us is when we do the Simran and we bring our surti inside the body and the surti comes above the nine doors into the Dasam Dwar, and which Gurbani tells us, um, Othe Anhad Shabad Vajay Din Rati, that in the Dasam Dwar, that's where we hear the Shabad. That's where that connection to Nam is made. Without doing that internal safar, without the Lord's name, Ram Nam Bin Mukt Na Hoy, that nobody can gain salvation or liberation.
And Gurbani says, Nanak lekhe ek gal hor home chakna chak. That one thing will count. This naam is the only thing that will count in the end. And I'm thinking of myself here. 99% of my day is consumed with other stuff as opposed to pursuit of the naam. It's consumed with work or family or personal care or trying to sort things out at the house, which I'm not very good at. But the point is that Gurbani is a constant reminder and it's a constant slap in the face. Like, what are you doing with your life? What are you doing with your time? Where is your focus?
It's a reality check, isn't it? Because when you're living, and I'm sure Ravan also felt the same, he probably thought he was amazing, right? He has so much knowledge, he had biggest family, he had everything. As far as he was concerned, he probably thought he'd done really well in life. But ultimately he turned to dust. His body turned to dust and he had to come back, in whatever form. So it's just a reality check for us when we think we become too involved, engrossed in things that are kind of not significant, really.
Transitory.
Yeah. We think that it doesn't mean not doing stuff. I think Gurbani tells us we live in the world but how much importance do we place on things like mentally? Where is our mind? Like we can do things, but still try and have Vaheguru in mind.
And Gorseks often use the analogy of a mum, like Darshan Kaur, whatever she's doing, she's always thinking about the baby. She's always thinking, oh, is the baby okay? Is the baby gonna fall out? Is it baby in the right
I'm
position?
listening out for her. Like
Yeah,
even if she's asleep, I'll have one part of my attention
yeah.
on her.
And when you look at a mum, it's incredible how their whole life
Mm,
revolves around this baby. They still do everything else. They still
mm,
eat, they still shower, they still do all of the other things, worldly things. They go places, they um might read, might do some work, but they s- their attention is still always on the baby. What's happening to the baby? What do I need to do next for the baby? So it's incredible to see these real life metaphors play out, as Gurbani has said, like the mum. And Gurbani talks about Ramaya Hum Barak Tere, that we are the children of Vaheguru. So it uses that analogy of child and parent often. In closing, I want to just talk about the moral of the story and my interpretation of it, which is that you can have everything. Uh, you can have all, especially in this Western world, when I go on YouTube and I see shorts, the kind of shorts that come up, it's a very kind of materialistic, misogynist um, world at the moment, where everything's about women, cars, wealth in terms of money, and you can have all of that. Ravan had all of that, but what happened to him? So I think I need you to help me remember what really matters. So please join us and let's do a minute simran together and let's keep on this journey and keep reminding each other and keep bringing each other back. In doing these vichar, if we've said anything wrong, please forgive us. Thank you to Guru Granth Sahib Ji above all else for having us on this path, showing us this path, and also by Deputy Singh, who's explained a lot of this stuff to us. Buljuk Maaf. If we can end with 1 minute Simran, and the way to do Simran is
We chant the mantra Vahe Guru, and as we breathe in, we chant Vahe and listen to the sound of our voice. And breathe out, we chant Guru, listening to the sound of our voice. Vahe
Guru,
Guru,
Why,
Vahe
Guru,
Guru,
Why,
Vahe
Guru,
Guru,
Why,
Vahe Guru,
Guru, Why,
Vahe
Guru,
Guru,
Why,
Vahe
Guru,
Guru,
Why,
Vahe
Guru,
Guru,
Why,
Vahe
Guru,
Guru,
Why,
Vahe Guru,
Guru, Why,
Vahe
Guru,
Guru,
Why,
Vahe Guru,
Guru, Why,
Vahe Guru,
Guru,
Vahe
Why,
Guru,
Guru, Why,
Vahe
Guru,
Guru,
Why,
Vahe
Guru,
Guru,
Why,
Vahe
Guru,
Guru,
Why,
Vahe
Guru,
Guru,
Why,
Vahe
Guru, Why Guru Ji Ka Khalsa.